Live from the quiet office of the company clerk, this is the Best Care Anywhere podcast. I am your host, Anthony, and joined, sitting in his bunker beneath the beautiful cornfields of Kansas, a man who can only be described as Chinese, communist, Kansas, Ethan Wilson.
You know, the bad thing about having a bunker below the cornfields is there's something deeply Lovecraftian about cornfields, especially at night. First of all, the fuckers they're tall. They're 7-8 feet tall when they're fully grown.
They're like a natural liminal space. It's very... I don't like it.
Yeah, and also, you go in there at night, it's pitch black. I mean, 2-3 rows in, you are in absolute darkness. Genuinely horrifying.
Corn is my new sleep paralysis demon. Hello, everyone. How are you? Welcome back. Ethan?
Yo.
Glad to speak to you.
You liar.
You know, I'm contractually obligated at this point. It's hot. It's too goddamn hot. It's gross, and I hate it. It was 104 degrees in my office when I got to it yesterday. Yeah.
Poor man.
Yeah. Disgusting. I hope everyone else is staying cool. I know that 104 degrees would be a godsend to people depending on where you live. What is it, Phoenix or somewhere in Arizona that's like on 10 days straight of 104 degrees plus like 110 degree temperatures?
Well, everything
for 4 days.
Everything in the American Southwest is just a testament to man's arrogance, so they kind of have it coming.
But Ethan, it's so pretty.
I've watched enough Breaking Bad to tell you, no, the fuck it's not.
Oh my. So, a couple things. A lot of things have happened in the last week or 2 weeks since we recorded. Firstly, apologies. It's already been posted by the time you're hearing this, but the YouTube episode for the last or the YouTube video for the last episode, for those of you that watch on YouTube, was late because too many things were happening the week that I needed to get it edited. And it was also a 2.5 hour, it was a feature-length episode that I did not realize was going to become a feature-length episode. So apologies for that, but it is uploaded by this now. And also, thank you for the positive feedback on such a long episode. I figured we could get away with it for the season 1 recap. Didn't know if we could get away with a 2.5 hour episode on a regular, episode discussion. So yay, thank you so much. Greg was very happy to have been on, so
absolutely,
it was nice. It was nice. What have you been getting up to, Ethan? Because I have stories. I have things to talk about before we get into the episode, but I figure I'll check in with you. What's up with Ethan? What's new in Ethan's world?
It's county fair time at small town Kansas, so I've been out at car shows and watching the tractor pulls and trying not to die in the heat, and then also not trying to die again in the torrential rain. It's been a whole big old thing, but I'm here.
Nice. Very nice. Things that have happened in my world is my goddamn parental units may have gotten me hooked on yet another hobby. So a week ago this weekend, my dad bought my mom a birthday gift, and that birthday gift was a home brewing class. And she was allowed to bring along friends, family, whatever. So there were 7 of us that went to this class. I was among them. And I'm just going to make a long story short. I'm going to be making cider and mead this winter because, oh my God. Yes. It was such an awesome class. The guy teaching it, I think the guy teaching it, we found out. It's one of the brewers that does recipes for at least one, if not more, of the major ale houses up here where I live. And he was also a former scoutmaster, so he has that energy about him. For those who get it, you understand. And it was 3 hours in a hot warehouse with a propane burner boiling the wort and the grain and everything together for the beer. And it was ridiculously fun. And then his employee, Roy, picture it older gentleman who works at a homebrew store named Roy. That's exactly what Roy looked like. He is one of the, like, according to this guy who did the brewing class, Patrick, he's like the mead guy for our area. So not only were we trying out Pat's homebrew while we were making our own beer, every like 30 minutes, Roy would pop his head out into the warehouse and hold up a chilled bottle of some concoction he made. We tried his Mandarin mead, slapped. We tried a spiced persimmon mead, also slapped. And then he brought out dry apple wine. By the third bottle, he could have come out and said, hey, I've got some fermented moose piss. And I'd be like, you know what? Honestly, you can't lead me wrong, Roy. So yeah, I have a whole book of mead making that I'm slowly reading through. And yeah, I'm going to be a little homebrew boy this winter. And so is my mom. She currently has 5 gallons of beer on its second round of fermenting before it gets bottled. So yeah, long story short, by this time next year, we'll probably be distilling our own liquor. So yeah.
You and I share from a similar illness, and that is, of course, champagne taste on a beer budget. And I say that because you and I both know how much honey costs.
Yes, but the amount of honey is getting expensive. Yes. But here's the trade-off. One, I'm more than happy to pay for the cost of honey from, the area that in the foothills where I'm at. You can't swing a dead cat without hitting 7 fucking farm stands that are selling fruit and honey and all sorts of shit. Because
that's true.
It's the foothills. Everyone's doing the suburban white mom moves to the country farm stand at the end of your driveway thing. And of all the people that do that, like 80% of them are actually selling good produce and good shit. Plus, the volume of honey to other ingredients is not so bad. I think it's for the average for like a gallon of mead is 3 pounds of honey, which is a lot. But if you're making mead, you're ordering it, in 2-liter jugs of honey, not in, but you're ordering in bulk basically, which helps. So yeah, meads, ciders, ginger beer, all that and more coming out of my experiments this winter, I think. Yeah. And then don't even get me started on distilling. That's a whole nother art unto itself that neither my mom or I are ready to tackle. But yeah, so that's happening. I'm addicted. I can't stop watching mead making videos. Someone please help me. So yeah, that's about it. I did mention to Ethan I was kind of being a sad boy on Friday. I won't get into detail because it will come up on future episodes, but let me put it this way. I watched the episode, for those who know, I went to season 8 and watched Old Soldiers twice. That's how sad boy I was feeling. If you know, you know.
And for you in the audience, don't you fucking spoil it for me. Don't do it. Don't do it.
So with all that out of the way, let's get to this week's episode. Season 2, Episode 3, Radar's Report. I'm going to say this right off the bat. This is another episode I forgot happened. I don't think I forgot happened as early as it does in the whole run of the show. But I didn't think it was the 3rd episode of Season 2. This is a good episode. I like that it's... I think I mentioned this with, what episode was it? It wasn't Dear Dad, it wasn't Dear Dad again. It was another episode in Season 1 where it was like a different way to tell the story. And I can't think of what episode it was. But this feels very much to me like the next evolution of a Dear Dad episode. Like it's a letter, but it's not a letter. It's a report, and it's not going to a family member. It's going to I-Corps. I thought this was a fun way to kind of do a day in the life type episode.
Well, didn't you say that? I mean, back in the original Dear Dads, that going forward we get a lot of Dear etc. episodes like that. So it's kind of a format that gets expanded upon.
Yes.
Okay.
But we also get we get characters writing letters to home, but we also get, I think this is an example. It's not a Dear Dad, but it's very Dear Dad adjacent. It's being told through another medium in a way. And in this case, it's Radar's report to I-Corps on the week's activities. This episode aired September 29th, 1973. It is directed by Jackie Cooper. We talked about Jackie Cooper previously. He is the most prolific director of season 2, and he's being paired with the most prolific writer of season 2, Laurence Marks, and Sheldon Keller, which he's done, I think he does 4 episodes of MASH. This is the second. The one we've seen before from Sheldon is Dear Dad again. So we're working with a crew that we have seen episodes from and we have liked episodes from. So I think that explains a lot of why this episode is so good.
Well, I know another contributing factor. On the 29th of September, We're an American Band peaked at #1, and that's just a damn banger. So if the writing staff was listening to that.
Fun music knowledge. I like it. So yeah, a weekly report by Radar is a fun way to format this episode. We see Radar working at his desk late at night. He's narrating the report. Hawkeye interrupts him to get the keys to the linen closet, and you very clearly hear a nurse giggling, and I love that Radar tosses him the keys and just kind of like rubs his forehead and then continues. He's got a whole ass pot of coffee in front of him. I'm loving Radar's late. As a night owl, as someone who would prefer to work late into the night than a regular work day, I'm feeling Radar's energy right now. But also, when the fuck does he sleep?
Well, apparently only when he has his beloved teddy bear named Tiger around. I learned that last week. Although there is something I wanted to ask you about this episode's premise.
Yes.
I know frighteningly little about the military. You know, I haven't been drafted into World War III yet. Hopefully we get a few more seasons under our belt until we do. What is this weekly report? What is the I-Corps? What kind of... So can you give me a play-by-play?
So this, and I'm sure any of our veterans or active duty listening, I don't know if we have any active duty listening. That'd be interesting. But if you are active duty listening, reach out to us. That's cool. That's fucking awesome. And thank you for serving.
Absolutely.
Also, where are you? That'd be fucking cool too. If you're in Korea, Uijeongbu is a real place. You should go there, take pictures, send them to us. Here's the thing about the military, especially the modern military. Logistics and paperwork are a huge reason things get done. Like, this is more of a supply thing, but the Allies didn't win World War II on manpower. They won it on logistics. They out-constructed, out-produced, and outgunned the enemy before manpower became an issue. You have to think of the military almost like a big company. Like, in order for the medical corps to know how effective they are, they need these reports of how many casualties, what's going on at the unit. It's data. It's all data. Casualty reports are data. Troop movements are data. And you take all this data and feed it to the people that know what to do with it, and you get a modern military force that's able to react and adapt and change. Like, that's as mundane as it is for 90% of the information Radar is typing. It may not be important as an individual data point, but when you add it to the entire spread of data that they're getting from medical units, from weather observations, from enemy troop movements, from, like, you take all this information that all your units are collecting and you aggregate it to help you make a better battle strategy, a better war plan, and a more efficient fighting force. That is my very layman's understanding of stuff like that in the military. A lot of it is redundant. A lot of it, as we'll see in future episodes, they make fun of the various weird bits of specific paperwork you have to do certain things in the military. As irritating as it is, as annoying as all that bureaucratic red tape is, it does serve a purpose. As far as what I-Corps is, it's literally what it sounds like. You have the military structure goes all the way down to a squad level, or a fire team level like we saw with Frank and his 4 South Korean troops in 5 o'clock Charlie. That would be a fire team. Typically, it's a team is 4 people. A squad is 8 to 16, so 2 to 3 fire teams. A platoon is like 4 to 8 squads. A company is 4 to 8 platoons. And it goes up from there. A corps is multiple. Is it brigades or divisions? I can't remember what's bigger than the other. But essentially, it's a couple hundred. It's a couple 100,000 size unit. It is a company is everything from infantry, artillery, medical units, logistics and supply. Like a company is, or sorry, corps. A corps is like a massive unit of troops. Essentially, it's close to the 200,000 to 300,000 troop size. It's a large body of troops, and then inside a corps you have armies. Inside armies you have brigades, divisions, companies. But I don't remember the whole breakdown. I'm sure I can find a graphic and pop on screen for the audience. But yeah, it's. Radar is sending this report of what's happening at the unit back up the chain of command so that they can, because what's going to happen is, for example, they might need to cross-reference Radar's weekly report with the POW's transfer paperwork. Like, oh, this is, they might need to cross-reference Radar's report with Lieutenant Johnson getting a Purple Heart because she sustained a combat injury in a combat unit. She is more qualified to earn a Purple Heart than Frank is after this episode.
Well, there's no technicality there.
Yes.
So okay, that is
it's
yeah, I can wrap my brain around that.
It's the end of year area director's report for camp scaled up infinitely. Like it's a bunch of useless information so that you can find the diamond in the rough of stuff that's actually important.
Okay, but to that end, and mind you, I understand the running gag, but shouldn't this really be something that Henry is doing and not Radar?
But yes and no. It's the equivalent of why. Okay, to use a scouting analogy again for anyone who wasn't in Scouts, sorry. Why shouldn't the senior patrol leader be the one taking the notes at the meeting and not the scribe? You need to delegate stuff out. Henry can't administrate the unit, be a surgeon, and do the mountains of paperwork. That's why a company clerk exists, is to help filter some of the. If the company clerk can do it, it's not distribution of power, but distribution of duty. It's like why not have me teach archery rifle and shotgun all at the same time? I can't. I physically don't have the time or mental capacity to handle all of it, so I have to delegate the shotgun class to another instructor and the archery class to another instructor. Basic tenet of leadership is learn how to delegate efficiently without overburdening your subordinates.
Well, it's a good thing the only thing I lead are local police on high-speed chases.
There you go. It's the same reason they made Hawkeye chief surgeon. Henry could have been chief surgeon, but he's also the he can't be both. That doesn't make sense. You have to distribute that responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're laying.
Plus Deus Ex Radar. Like, make Radar. Just make Radar do it. He's fine. He'll live. He's young. He has many more years. So we hear from Radar's report that there was an incident in OR, and I like that, again, much like the Dear Dad episode, I like that we get an explanation in the letter, and then we see the event. That's kind of cool. I will say, there is more of a consistent plot in these vignettes, as opposed to just bouncing around randomly like well, I guess that's not true. I guess Dear Dad and the Dear Dad episodes have had at least one or two through lines, like the guy impersonating a surgeon was a through line, and a couple others. But anyway, so we're in surgery. It's busy. It's hopping. probably the busiest OR scene we've gotten so far this season. Frank's being a ninny, and they bring in a Chinese POW, and he is looking freaked out. He is stressing. The Chinese prisoner, by the way, is played by an actor named Derek Shimatsu. So they bring him in. Frank is, once again, I said it last episode, we're starting to get kind of xenophobic, or not xenophobic. What's the word I'm trying to think of?
Wouldn't it be xenophobic?
Yeah, it is xenophobic. Sorry. Frank hasn't hit full racist yet. He's mostly xenophobic and susceptible to believing stereotypes. Some people would call that flat out racist. I think it's just ignorance.
I'd call it 1950s America.
Oof. Yeah.
Edit that out.
But, oops. Oh no, my finger slipped and it didn't. But we see that Frank is uninterested in working on the Chinese patient, which is fine, I guess. You do you, Frank. Hawkeye's going to work on him, and Trapper makes a good point. Hawk, be careful. For all we know, he thinks we're going to fucking carve him up and eat him, which, that's a legitimate thing that, that was legitimate propaganda that was spread around. And I was just watching a thing on, the recapturing of Iwo Jima in World War II. Of the 22,000 Japanese defenders of that island, take a guess how many survived the battle and surrendered.
Oh, good lord. I couldn't even.
1,800. And that's a...
Out of 22,000?
Yep.
Oh.
And the last two to surrender themselves to American forces surrendered in February of 1949.
Wow.
Yeah. And most of the POWs in their later memoirs about their time in the war said, we were so surprised at the genuine hospitality and kindness of the Americans because we were told that they would torture us, beat us, carve us up, eat our flesh. Like, the propaganda that the Japanese troops were fed was insane. But anyway.
Really, that was a piece of propaganda that was used in World War II and probably carried over into the Korean conflict.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always, and we're going to see examples of it throughout MASH. There's examples of the North Koreans spouting propaganda about the Americans. There's even episodes where the Americans, not necessarily spouting propaganda, but there's definitely episodes where you know that there's rumors, and maybe not propaganda, but rumors about the Chinese and the North Koreans, what they do to prisoners. But that's part of war. The sad reality of war is it's easier to kill people when you dehumanize them. Hence, you get the enemy are barbarians, the enemy are savages. Literally within like a week of the Germans invading through Belgium to get to France in World War I, you had that very iconic poster of the gorilla wearing the pickle helm with the spike on it and holding a fey, a damsel in distress, like King Kong style. Like within days, that was a poster that you saw around places, making the Germans, animalistic and brutal and all that. Like that's step one. If you're going to declare war on an enemy, and we talked about this with Tyler way back in The Moose. We were talking about all the old World War II cartoons from Disney and Looney Tunes in particular, Warner Brothers, where you had the big, loud, burly Italian dictator character making fun of Mussolini. You had the loud, goose-stepping, copy and paste soldiers that were making fun of the Nazis, and you had the buck-tooth glasses wearing, Secretary of War, Prime Minister Tojo looking Japanese character, and those were your bad guys in the cartoons because it's easier to fight an enemy when you don't see them as equal. So, yeah. Don't worry, there are so many better episodes to have that discussion about. But yeah, Frank's kind of brought into the racist part of war, and unfortunately the Chinese prisoner has bought into the propaganda side of, oh, these Americans are gonna, cut out my heart and do weird experiments on it and eat my brain and all that jazz. So understandably, he's concerned. Father Mulcahy, God bless him, tries to comfort the patient by saying "Bung Chow," which allegedly means peace and friendship. Now, Ethan, I've tried to go down a rabbit hole. I really have. I don't think it'll surprise the audience to learn Bung Chow neither means peace and friendship, nor does it mean your daughter's pregnancy brings great joy to our village. I have two potential options for what is going on here, and neither of them are good, Ethan. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Well, lay it on me. Option
1, Father Mulcahy's lines are a much tamer version of the stereotypical, ching chong bing bong me speak Asian language, which is not great. Or they did a Robin Williams on Mork and Mindy. Robin Williams is a master of wordplay, as we know. God rest his soul. I miss him so fucking much.
Yes.
He was very well known on Mork and Mindy for suggesting lines from Mork that ended up being curses, swear words, and sexual innuendos in other languages, and passing them off as Mork's alien language. I'm not going to go into further detail, and I of the two, I think this is the least likely. There are unconfirmed in the depths of the MASH internet, there are unconfirmed sources that say Bung Chow could mean anything from a Cantonese slang term for genitalia, certain curses. I could not find anything that was certain. I'm leaning on they just picked a phrase from an Asian language that was short and easy to say. If any of our audience has any further insight into Bung Chow, I would appreciate it. Maybe not if it's of an adult nature. You can send that to us privately, and I'll decide whether it meets the threshold of decency. But yeah, from everything I can tell, Bung Chow, long story short, neither means peace and friendship, or your daughter's pregnancy brings great joy to our village. So, there you go. But I can't be mad at William Christopher Father Mulcahy because, my God, he's trying. He really is, with all his heart.
He's doing a good job, to his credit.
To be honest, I would love to get a Bung Chow, oh please Bung Chow, in like block text on a t-shirt, but not if it means some of the things it's been alluded to meaning.
I don't know. Have you seen some of the English words foreigners are tattooing on their bodies? It's a very large trend in Japan and South Korea.
Oh God, yeah, where they'll get like some Chinese symbols and it's like shrimp fried rice, or vice versa. They'll get like a Japanese person might get like radiator cap in English tattooed on them. It's like, oh, it's so, I don't know. Yeah, I've seen it. So the Chinese prisoner freaks out, grabs a scalpel, which, from my very limited days in my senior year of high school doing the law enforcement careers class, one of the things that was imparted to us heavily by every guest speaker we had is a man with a knife is 100 times more dangerous than a man with a gun, because it takes no skill whatsoever to be dangerous with a knife. And that didn't make sense to me, but then I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, literally, as soon as you hand anyone a sharp piece of metal, there's no mechanical failure possibility, there's no human error, you don't turn the safety off possibility. A knife is immediately a threat, and yeah, that makes sense. Especially a surgically sharp knife. So I like how everyone's calm for a moment, like, okay, let's all settle down, and then frickin' Henry, help! Guard! Mayday! Like, that's not... Thank you. Henry, everything was maybe going to be calm, and then you started screaming. I give Henry like 10% blame for everything that happens next.
Well, this is why banks have silent alarms.
Yes.
I don't know how you would put that in a 1950s surgical unit, but there are other options.
Yeah. Yeah, but Follow them, okay, he's screaming Bung Chow. The Chinese prisoner breaks the IV bottle for Trapper's patient, which is the last bottle of, I believe, O negative blood. He slashes one of the orderlies. Lieutenant Erica Johnson, who Hawkeye had been flirting with moments before, tries to calm him down, but he panics and slashes her across the hand. Klinger comes in. Man, hang on. I need to take a picture. I got the perfect screen cap for Klinger coming in, and I need to use it. I'll never get this again, so I have to capture it right now. Klinger comes in, asks what all the hoo-ha is. Prisoner takes a swipe at him, slices one of the straps to his dress, and they're able to restrain him enough. And Klinger, I love that Klinger's angry, but Klinger, there's a man with a knife actively struggling with 3 of your campmates, maybe less complaining about the status of your outfit and more detain the prisoner. But I digress. Klinger says, that was a $30 dress. Your people will pay for this. Lovell's M1 Garand at enemy prisoner, to which the enemy prisoner rightfully goes, oh shit, and drops the knife. So, to answer your question from a few episodes back, this is Klinger's job. He's not only a hospital staff, but he is also part of the camp's infantry detachment, and thus the muscle when things go sideways.
You have to understand that I get he's bucking for a Section 8, and that's his God-given right. But do you have to do so in high heels that are clearly hindering your ability to get to where you're needed? Klinger would have been there a full 3 slashes ago. Or at least he should have been. But I digest.
And there's an argument to be made that if they were operating on a Chinese prisoner, wouldn't you have armed security nearby anyway? Because, like, yeah, the prisoner's terrified and may not be acting in his right mind, but also, you don't want your people to be injured or killed, so, you know, your people will pay for this. I love that so much. We then flash back to radar. Prisoner of war surgery completed by Captain Pierce. Report submitted by Corporal Klinger, who sustained loss of personal property. See attachment for replacement of 1 Brazier brand name Miss High Rise, which I love that. I love that so much, Miss High Rise. We see that Trapper is upset that his patient is going south because, and I don't think they specifically say, I don't know if it's the lack of blood that caused the problem or the fact that the field was contaminated that caused the problem, or a little bit of both. It sounds like he got a serious post-op infection that complicated his already complicated injuries. So I feel like it was a contamination of the field problem, but I'm sure not having enough of the right blood during surgery also did not help. But we'll come back to Trapper. I think there's a much better period in the episode to talk a little more about Trapper, because I think he definitely gets to shine more in this episode.
Yeah, I can't wait to discuss it.
We then see Hawkeye mixing up a bottle of, quote, wine, unquote, Chateau Hawkeye 51. A cheeky little wine. They call it the Rascal of the Vineyards. And I absolutely plan to make some wine in my brewing at some point, and it will be called Chateau Hawkeye, and I will absolutely put a label on it that has MASH references on it. Which is completely unnecessary, but you know what? Commit to the bit. So while Hawkeye is coloring the wine, quote, wine, unquote, Trapper is still brooding over the prisoner of war. And Hawkeye, I don't think Hawkeye is being flippant. I think Hawkeye is more accepting of the fact that it is what it is. Which, again, we'll come back to this conversation because I think there's a better time in the episode to discuss it. But I like the back and forth that we get between Hawkeye and Trapper on at least that plot line of this episode. Hawkeye is making a way across the compound and he salutes Frank, which is new and strange. So much so that even Frank has to stop and comment on it. Like, Pierce, you just saluted me. And I love Hawkeye's response, well, we all have our bad days, Frank, and he just walks away. Frank is, of course, on his way to visit none other than Major Margaret Houlihan, and he walks in and bites the neck of one Corporal Klinger who is using Margaret's hairdryer, which the hairdryer comes up again in a future episode. Margaret, you're 3 miles from the front. Why do you have an electric hairdryer? Like, when the unit has to bug out, is that really getting loaded on a truck, Margaret? Be honest with me. It's
what do you mean when? What do you mean when, Red?
They're a mobile Army surgical hospital, Ethan. It is implied that they regularly move, even though they're at the same exact place basically the entire time. Don't think about it. They are the M in MASH stands for mobile. Why does she have a probably 150-pound piece of 1950s hair drying equipment?
Well, you know my bigger problem with this scene as a whole. I've been young, I've been stupid, and therefore I have been in love. But I've never been in love to the point where I have felt the need to bite my lover's shoulder blade, especially as a greeting. Ferret face, you dirty little dog.
But Margaret obviously enjoys it because she offers for him to bite the real thing. So we then jump to Hawkeye and Lieutenant Erica Johnson. They're sharing wine, quote unquote. Hawkeye is smitten with Lieutenant Johnson. There's a little bit of flirting, but then he notices the gold band on her finger and he immediately gets cold feet and bails. Not much to say about the scene. Again, at the end of the episode, we'll kind of summarize. I'm not a fan of the Hawkeye plotline in this. It's not bad. It's just bleh. It's not interesting to me. But again, we'll dive into it once we have the full picture. We then jump back to Frank and Margaret. They are insistent on addressing the Klinger issue, which... Here's the weird thing about this, and I want to see if this makes sense to you. What's Klinger's goal?
To get out of the Army by any means necessary.
What's Frank and Margaret's goal in this scene?
To get Klinger out of the Army, or at the very least disciplined, but I suppose discharged.
Are Margaret and Frank idiots?
Well, Frank is at least.
I understand why they want him out of the Army, but even first of all, backtrack. I love how whenever Henry addresses Frank, and then we're going to get this in a couple episodes between now and the end of season 3, where he's addressing Frank, but Margaret is answering, and I like how he just stops Mark and goes, "Frank, I need you to make a sound. Even a gurgling noise would help." But even Margaret and Frank say he's bucking for a discharge and I want you. They know it's a ruse. So why are you giving it to him? We see in a few more episodes, Frank, even in a good mood, isn't willing to sign the paper to have Klinger sent away. Ah! But yeah. So they complain to Henry. They do the thing that we hate them doing and Henry doing, which Henry says, no, that's my final answer. Well, we're going to go to the adjutant general, and then Henry folds. I love the, all right, let's have it. What's wrong with Klinger? And Margaret and Frank just look and go, what's wrong with Klinger? A soldier stands in your office in an evening gown and you ask what's wrong with him?
An evening gown that has been tied at the cut line from the soldier.
Yes, you can see where he's had to retie it. I love continuity. I love it. We flash back to radar that a divisional psychiatrist will be dispatched to the 407th to determine whether Corporal Klinger can be discharged under the Section 8 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And real quick, I'm going to pull up Section 8 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, because we hear the term Section 8 hundreds of times, not to be confused with Section 8 housing. I forgot to pull this up beforehand.
It's okay. You're the editor, not I.
All right. Section 8 comes from the term for the Section 8 of the World War II era United States Army Regulation 615360 concerning the separation of enlisted men from the military service. Section 8 provided the discharge of men who were deemed mentally unfit for military service. The term Section 8 eventually came to mean any service members given such a discharge or behaving as if deserving of such a discharge, as in the expression, he's a Section 8. Section 8 discharges, this will be important for later, both this episode and future episodes. Section 8 discharges were often given to members of the LGBT community as they were deemed mentally unfit to serve in the military. A Section 8 discharge often made it difficult for people to find work in civilian life and did not allow for veterans' benefits.
Oh, boy.
Discharge under Section 8 is no longer practiced, as medical discharges for psychological and psychiatric reasons are now covered by a number of regulations. In the Army, such discharges are handled under provisions of Army Regulation 635-200, Active Duty Enlistment Administrative Separations, Chapter 5, Paragraph 13, governs the separation of personnel medically diagnosed with a personality disorder.
Well, that's a mouthful.
My tongue hurts. But yeah, essentially, Section 8 is your brain go bzz, so you no fight no more.
Well, and that's not even a dishonorable discharge.
The term brain, well, it basically is, but... we're going to talk about it a little bit in this episode and a lot of it in a future episode. Section 8, as it's hinted to by the second paragraph of that discussion, it's for mentally unfit for military service. I don't know if you noticed, but that is an incredibly vague term. And as we're going to see the divisional psychiatrist mention, he's like, all right, Klinger. All right, here's your discharge. Here's the reason why I'm giving it to you. Are you happy with that? But we'll get to that when he comes on screen, because I am awaiting when we get to talk about this next character. I love this little moment for Radar. He clearly is giving a fake sip of coffee to a teddy bear. I know. I have a love-hate relationship with this, because I get it. Radar is an innocent, moon-faced child. He is an 18 to 19-year-old adult. I get that you're trying to portray him as young and innocent. It's adorable, and I love it. But also, he's 19.
Okay, let me put it to you like this. Let's get into this. Did you ever have a stuffed animal, a teddy bear, something like that when you were a kid that you were like close to in the same way that Radar is currently?
Yeah, he's still in my closet.
Yeah, my mom has my. I had a little like baby blue bunny rabbit that I had. I think I was 4 when I gave it up. My mom holds on to it for sentimental reasons. So I cannot cast the first stone without condoning nor condemning. I understand.
And then he turns back to his work and just mutters under his breath, "Crazy people." And then we get the commercial. Do we get a commercial? Is that the commercial break? I don't think that is. It is the commercial break. You're right.
Yeah.
So we come back. We have Hawkeye and Trapper enjoying martinis in the sun. Hawkeye is lamenting that Lieutenant Johnson is married, and that's not a line he's willing to cross. Radar comes and grabs Trapper because his patient's turning south again. Internal bleeding, deep shock, yada, yada, yada. Radar brings the report up to speed with everything's going on, and then he mentions that the divisional psychiatrist arrived to evaluate Corporal Klinger. Major Milton Freedman, played by Alan Arbus, praise be unto him. Now, Ethan, you have, as we have alluded to, you are watching ahead, which is not a problem. There's nothing in Season 2 that I think is too crazy for you to know in advance.
Sure.
I'm sure that you have been paying attention enough to know that we do see Major Freeman again this season.
Yeah.
He's in Deal Me Out.
Yes. I enjoy him.
And I know that you have been pining for a regular psychiatrist to visit the MASH, which is why I'm scared to tell you. I'm curious. Do you want to know how many episodes of MASH Alan Arbus is in?
I gotta tell you, if we're gonna go whole hog into this Alan Arbus praise be unto him thing, like it seems you're fully prepared to do, I should have a rough idea of what I'm in for. Let's hear that number.
I want you to guess how many episodes of 251 episodes. How many episodes is Alan Arbus in? I'll give you a hint. It's lower than I thought it was. When I actually saw the number, I'm like, really? It's only that few?
Well, if he's gonna be a recurring character, 250. Probably every 8 episodes or something, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say like 25 episodes.
That is what I thought he was in. I thought he was in like at least average out 2 per season and maybe, more toward the latter end. No, he is in exactly 12 episodes.
Really?
And he is, I would argue, there's 2 characters that come to mind when I say this next thing, but I would argue if people really were forced to give an answer, they would say this. I would bet you Major Freedman is everyone's favorite non-main cast member of MASH. And he's in 12 episodes. 2 of which are in this season. So, yes. Alan Arbus, praise be unto him, will be returning at least once a season from this point forward as Major Freedman, the psychiatrist. And he has some of the best episodes of some of those seasons.
I'm just so happy. I've got because of course I've got the episode pulled up so I can kind of watch along with the subtitles, and I've got it paused on the frame where Klinger bursts in. Friedman's sitting in Henry's office, and Freedman looks at him and arches his eyebrow. You got me up here to ask me about him? About that?
About that.
The look on his face.
What do you want to know? Whether he needs a girdle? Whether his seams are straight? And I love how he just rubs his temples and goes, it's all part of the war, I guess. Sit down. And he starts taking notes, which is fun. I like this because we saw Captain whatever the hell his name was from the first episode. What was his name? Not Sherman. Was it Sherman? What was the psychiatrist's name in the first episode of this season? I can't think of his name. Anyway, it's not important. I like how we saw him taking a bunch of notes, and we're like, oh, he's gonna split the MASH unit up. And we see Freedman taking a bunch of notes, and Klinger's like watching, like intrigued, and he finally looks up and goes, "All right, what's your name, honey?" And even Klinger looks at Henry like, this is weird, right? No, I love the way they introduce. Even if he was a one-off character, I like the way they treat him in this episode. So we cut from that back to Erica Johnson and Hawkeye. Hawkeye is still stressing about the fact that she's married. And then she finally admits that I'm just wearing the ring to ward off horny single soldier boys. And apparently that's enough for Hawkeye to be like, ooh, intrigue and mystery and romance. Fun fact about this scene, the lights dim. And you get the little announcement that, don't worry, folks, just the generator, acting up. That was improvised. While shooting the scene, they actually had a little electrical surge on set, and the lights actually dimmed. So they just wrote in that little announcement to placate that.
I love little improvised lines like that, because for all of the other PA announcements we get, it fits in so well.
Mm-hmm. So they're passionately necking, and
canoodling.
Canoodling. And
Snogging.
We get an announcement. Yes. We get an announcement that Hawkeye is needed in surgery because Trapper's patient is turning south. We get an uncredited appearance of Nurse Kelly again, which we love.
Whoop.
We stand Nurse Kelly. Hawkeye, Trapper is obviously stressed about his patient. Hawkeye is a little more relaxed. Then Margaret comes in and unfortunately relays the news that Trapper's patient passed away. someone at the 477th needs to do a better job at cleaning the windows. That's just something I noticed. And then we get this scene with Trapper where he goes to the POW's tent and has what is probably one of the darker moments from one of our main casts in the series. And I'm sure there's moments that I'm not thinking of, but this is the one moment where one of our main characters is potentially going to make a very, very morally wrong decision. And I am curious what you thought of it, especially since it's coming from your favorite man crush, Trapper.
First of all, phenomenal acting from Wayne Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't claim to know anything about acting, so I can just sit here as an observer and just say the look in his eyes, despondent, but, you know, with malice, that has got to be difficult to capture so well.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly what I wanted, you know, when we were discussing the season 1 episode, or the season 1 wrap up. You know, more meat for Wayne Rogers. Just give him an emotion. Give him something other than just Hawkeye's sidekick. So to have him go in there, you comfortable? You know, like to care so deeply about having lost a patient, and then to have Hawkeye come in and back him off the edge was. It was a godsend for me personally.
And it's a good highlight of how Trapper and Hawkeye are different, because I think back to Sticky Wicket, where Hawkeye's patient was going south, and it's not a good one-to-one comparison, because Hawkeye's patient was going south because of an error he made, or not an error, but an oversight that he made. Whereas, and he got angry at himself and others around him because he couldn't figure out why his patient was going south. Trapper, and again, Trapper has a more defined target for his anger because he can trace what was going wrong with his patient to a specific person that's not him.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if this was intended in the writing. I think Hawkeye is taking some of what Henry imparted to him, like, hey, you're going to have cases go south on you for circumstances that are outside of your control. And that's exactly what happened to Trapper. It's not the POW's fault. It's not your patient's fault. It's not your fault. It's just a series of events that happen, and unfortunately, it led to this outcome. It's just the way it is. But, and again, when Hawkeye comes in and backs Trapper off the ledge, I like the acting, because to me, Wayne Rogers's facial expression tells me that Hawkeye's words didn't completely take Trapper's anger to zero. I bet Trapper is still furious at this POW. He just has had that moment of clarity to go, doing anything to this guy doesn't make the situation right. I still think Trapper is upset, but he's not rage induced, if that makes sense.
Well,
I don't think Hawkeye did any sort of magic, you know, sunshine and butterflies thing with his words. I still think Trapper's angry, but he's past the point of, if he was going to do something, he would have done it. He's past that now.
It's just a good episode that showcases what I think their relationship was supposed to be before Hawkeye kind of, you know, became the center of attention. You know, at the beginning, Trapper's, you know, he's upset at Hawkeye for letting that POW get so close to a scalpel and whatnot, you know, but they're still joking around, and Hawkeye, I think, recognizes that Trapper needs some space to kind of works it out, goes on his date, and, you know, then they're joking around again. But when the chips are down, Hawkeye, he goes in there and he doesn't launch into a big speech, because, you know, he knows that that's not what needs. It's very simple. It's one line. That's not what we're about. And it's.
And I also like this, and again, people who know will know, this is a very nice scene that we're going to come back to in a few seasons, because a very, very, very much in the way that Mike alluded to, that he wants us to come back to Sticky Wicket in a future episode. This conversation is going to come back up in a future episode between two characters as well, because a very similar situation is laid in front of the doctors, and it goes. I don't want to say it goes a different way because it's not the same situation, but there's a similar set of circumstances that the doctors are faced with. So it's very interesting. But after that very deeply serious and traumatizing moment for Trapper, we're back to Major Freedman and Klinger. Major Freedman has determined that Klinger is worthy of a Section 8 psychological discharge. And he hands him the paper, says, read it and sign it. You'll have your wish. You'll be out of the army. And he says to Klinger, well, I've found you to be a homosexual and a transvestite, and you will be given a Section 8 discharge. And he says it very bluntly. And Klinger gets upset. He's like, I'm not any of those. And he's like, yeah, and I don't think this comes across as Major Freedman is being judgmental or homophobic or any of that stuff. I think he's doing that to be very clear to Klinger that, hey, if you get out of the army on a Section 8 doing what you're doing, the army is going to label you this because that's the only checkbox they can check on this form. And as we just read about Section 8 discharges back then, it follows you. You get no military benefits. It goes on your permanent record. It is something that will come up in a background check. And in 1950s America, that basically nukes you out of society. It nukes you from any high-level, well-paying job in most places. So I don't think it's ever come across to me as Major Freedman being rude to Klinger. He's being blunt with Klinger in the only way he can. But what do you think, Ethan? What did you think of Major Freedman's basically, yeah, you're a homosexual and transvestite?
No, I
and you got to deal with that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Freedman is smart enough to know exactly what Klinger's doing. You know, if he's a division psychiatrist, he's got to have seen this a time or two, you know, bucking for a Section 8. And so he's, you know, kind of in his own way going, all right, I'll play your game, but if we are going to play it, then we're going to follow the rules. And just showing him within the Klinger's own sort of setup to get himself gone, what will happen if he keeps kicking that can down that road. It doesn't seem malicious in the sense of, you know, I don't think Freedman actually believes any of that. I think he's proving a point.
And I think they end the scene in a way that helps the audience appreciate that Major Freedman is not being an ass. He's being realistic, because even after that conversation, he stops Klinger and says, "Soldier, you forgot your purse," which I love. We then get the end of Hawkeye's plotline for the episode, which, if you couldn't tell already, I don't really care about. Lieutenant Johnson comes in, informs Hawkeye that Hawkeye somehow thinks that he's going to marry Lieutenant Johnson, despite not wanting to marry any of the nurses he told previously during Ceasefire. And in future episodes, we're going to learn about Hawkeye and his thoughts on marrying people. I don't know. It's whatever. She's being transferred to Tokyo. She doesn't want to get married. Blah, blah, blah. This is not a good example of a Hawkeye relationship focused episode, and I don't have anything profound to say about it. Do you have thoughts, Ethan?
No, I
all
think
right.
Yeah. What? Yeah, what do you want me to say? I could pull something out of my ass if you want me to say something.
Nah, I'm good. I think we're in the same mindset of like, okay, Hawkeye, whatever.
Yeah.
I can't. Audience, if there is anything profound that you got from this plot line, please let us know, because I got nothing. I think the best thing that came out of this plot line was Lieutenant Erica saying, "Do you think you wanting to marry is just a war thing?" And then Hawkeye responding with, "No, I'd love you in war and peace." Or Moby Dick, any of the classics. That's the only good thing that came out of this plot line. I like that joke.
Well, here's what I want to know from this plot line. You know, we got to see pretty firsthand Hawkeye's flirting skills. Any females in the audience, would you please write me and let me know if this would work? Please, I'm desperate. Tinder is failing me. I'm so lonely. Oh my
Oh
god.
no.
Will this work? Oh,
All
I
right.
think I'm hilarious.
You're something.
Aw.
So we get to the bumper scene. Radar brings the report in to get signed by Henry. Henry fairly asks Radar, "What am I signing? You never let me read anything I'm signing." And he goes over the report, and I like how he just kind of glances through it and hits on some of the notes, like, all right, Chinese prisoner of war, Trapper's patient died, Lieutenant Johnson transferred. Well, every week can't be exciting. Like, this was a mundane week at the hospital. Oh boy. That's... I can't even imagine. And I like that in the middle of it, he mentions, "Oh, by the way, did you see what Klinger wore to Chow last night? Whew, head snapper." Okay. Okay, Henry. Love it how secure in everyone's masculinity everyone is. So yeah, that was the end of Radar's report. What I am perplexed on how I feel about this episode for a couple reasons, but I'll ask you first. What did you think of the episode?
The there were so of course there were 3 through lines. One of them I loved, one of them I thought was funny, one of them I was, you know, kind of in and out for. I
Mhm.
still think the concept of the report is cool. I think it's deeply inspired by the Dear Dads, but you know, I learned some history from you, so I'm pretty okay with it. I liked it
Nice.
overall. I thought the storylines were there. The wrap up was kind of funny. You know, it was good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. It I really liked that Trapper got a little bit of time to develop as a character, because I've always thought Trapper and Hawkeye are very similar on the like moral compass grounds in the show, but I feel like they get angry about different things. I feel like Trapper goes in with Hawkeye on a lot of the moral crusades that they do, but for a lot of stuff, like for example in Ceasefire, he is very nonchalant. He's very flippant. But other things like the POW thing, he takes personally,
Yeah,
and he gets a little bit more, like, you know, man of the streets, I'm gonna fight you angry, whereas Hawkeye gets righteously indignant.
yeah.
So I like that there's that difference. Um, yeah. What would, with that being said, what would you? Let me backtrack. Unfortunately, you already know that you see this person again, but based on this introduction of Freedman, was he a character that you found yourself wanting to see again, or did you kind of figure he was going to be this? Well, there goes another one-off psychiatrist.
I want to see him, but I'm hoping that in one of his upcoming episodes, he's a little more at the forefront. And I mean that in the sense of I think having a psychiatrist, you know, being shown actually doing their job would be a really interesting plot. And I like him enough to think that an episode like that with him would be fantastic.
You don't want to just have him brought in for a poker game like one of the guys every time. You want him to
Ye-
have a little more substance.
Yeah, I think you know, he's clearly funny. You know, that introduction was a real knee slapper, but I think that if you could flesh out his character a little bit to show him, you know, doing his job, that could be really interesting.
I don't think it is much of a spoiler to say that you are going to be pleasantly surprised
Yay.
in going forward. But again, we get him average once a season from now on. So you're gonna have to wait for it, but it will happen. So with that being said, what would you rate Radar's report?
I'm sitting at I'm sitting at a 4.3.
4.3.
And I liked Trapper's development. I really did. And I liked Klinger's scene, but just really didn't care about the Erica plotline so much. So, when you think of it sort of as what percentage of the episode I was really invested in, I think 4.3 is fair to say.
Right. On to the audience reviews.
Do I not get to know yours?
No, you don't. It's a secret.
Oh, okay.
No, I completely forgot that I hadn't even mine. I gave it a 4. I think similar to you, I really liked Major Freeman's introduction. I really liked that Trapper got some stuff to do. I liked the format of the episode. But yeah, the Hawkeye, it feels like the Hawkeye thing got thrown in there because I don't think they would have had enough with just the Klinger and Trapper stuff. So they needed another something to cut in between those two. And again, much like a Dear Dad episode, I think they took 3 thin plots and brought them together into an episode that it would make sense to. And I think they did that well. I just think one of the 3 was just weaker than the other 2. But sure. It is what it is. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for me. Chad Smith says 4.2 out of 5. The Hawkeye scenes are underwritten, but Trapper's story is gripping. Gary Berghoff is hilarious even when he doesn't have any lines. And it's amazing how Dr. Freeman's character is fully in place in just a few short lines and scenes.
It is uncanny to me how well Chad Smith is able to consistently summarize everything we say. Like I don't really
Chad Smith can just write a summary like if you too long didn't listen and perfectly summarize our thoughts on an episode inadvertently. I love it.
If he's psychic, he needs to find better brains to use his powers on. That's all I'm saying.
Chief Smash Forever says 4 out of 5. I love the day in the life episodes of MASH. Very good stories mixed together with Sydney's first appearance. I agree with other comments. Season 2 is starting to heat up and we get some amazing episodes coming up. Yes, we do. I am excited. Donator 111 4.25. One of 2 big examples I use for how good Trapper could be if they let him. The scene where he considers killing, or at least he said killing. I would say, and I guess this is a question we just covered. If Hawkeye had not come in the room, what do you think would have happened? Would Trapper have killed that man? And this is, unfortunately, we don't know enough about Trapper at this point to really know what he would do, I don't think, but
I'm going to answer this with the caveat that as Trapper's character I can change my answer. I think in that moment, he probably would have shut off his IV. I don't think he would have left it off.
Happened.
I think he probably would have realized with or without Hawkeye what he was doing and turned it back on. I think he wanted more to inflict pain and just to get any way to let this POW know
I'm not happy with
yeah.
I think that doesn't, even if you say I don't think Trapper would have killed him, I don't think that diminishes Hawkeye's presence, because I think even if he had pinched off the IV line, that's committing to something that is, as a doctor, you should not, which is literally, and again, eventually we'll read the Hippocratic Oath on this show. Haven't done it yet. Part of the Hippocratic Oath is do no harm, which again is vague and broad and wide-reaching for a reason. Pinching the IV line and threatening your patient like that definitely would fall under do no harm as breaking that rule. But I still think Hawkeye's presence isn't diminished, even if you don't believe Trapper would have killed the patient. But anyway, Delnia says he also likes the introduction of Sydney. Hawkeye scenes are fun, but not as memorable. This lightsaber kills fascists. Twitter, give the man more characters. He keeps having to write multiple tweets. Free him from this prison. 4 out of 5. Another great episode that loses some points for an inconsequential Hawkeye storyline. But we get Trapper's storyline, the expansion of Klinger's character, and the introduction of Freedman to make this another winner in a season full of them. Trapper and Klinger really get to shine here. Klinger's storyline is hilarious, and the exchange between Trapper and Hawkeye is one of my favorites of the series. We didn't talk much about Klinger. This is I think I told you this the other day before we watched it. This is Klinger. Klinger is Klinger now. This is much more the Klinger we're going to get for the next few seasons. He's a little more consistent in his character in this episode. So he's a dude who's wearing dresses to get out of the army. That's it. He's much better characterized in this episode than some of the previous ones. So yeah, that's Radar's report. I will go back to something we talked about last week. We had the whole props conversation. What props would you want from MASH? Some of the audience's replies. Radar's teddy bear, Hawkeye's purple robe, Colonel Potter, a character we haven't met yet canonically. Colonel Potter, the future commanding officer, is a painter, and he does paintings of various characters in the MASH unit. So some of those paintings would be fun to have as props. Now I'm doing list. Hawkeye's Hawaiian shirt was another one that came up. And then
you
I'm
can
gonna
have that one if you can break into the Smithsonian.
Yeah. I'm gonna name two that make absolutely no sense to you, Ethan.
Okay.
If it wouldn't spoil, Don't Eater 111 says he would want the spam lamb.
What?
And this lightsaber kills fascists mentioned the 2x4 that used to be round, or Hitler's pencil box.
I hate
Don't
you
worry.
guys. No, I'm not. I'm just gonna real zen, baby. Just gonna let it go.
What's worse, if I say those things, or if I say those things and then tell you how many more seasons you have to wait for them to be explained to you?
Because I am painfully aware of our time frame. Just leave it at that.
So yeah, that was Radar's report. Good episode. I enjoyed it. Our next one. What's our next one? I never have the next one ready. What is our next one? For the good of the outfit. This is an interesting one. I'm looking that'll be a fun one to talk about because it's the first episode where we have the main characters not fighting Frank or fighting a plot line that's happening in the MASH. They're actually going out of camp and kind of fighting the military industrial complex. So yay, fun. Anything else? Are we missing anything?
I don't think so. I think that's about it.
On that note, I've been Anthony. That's been Ethan. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
The time has come for us to say sayonara. My heart will always be yours for eternity.